1. Background. This took place about 3 years ago when I was 19. I'm female. I was living in a one-bedroom apartment on campus. My building was not campus housing, but really close to schools, which averaged 2,200 students every year. It had a few apartments and was designed like this. First floor was the entrance and the apartment of entitled Son Number 1. Second floor was my apartment above the entrance and entitled Son Number 2. Both sons were about 40 years old, and their mother, who was about 60 years old, was living with entitled Son 2. I later had confirmation by building management that she was not supposed to live there. This building was old, not so well soundproofed. To add to that, our 2 apartments on the second floor were once one apartment that was separated by a thin partition between my kitchen and EM's bedroom. Beforehand, before that day, I had received notes in my mailbox or visits from EM saying that I was too loud. She told me that my washing machine was too loud, so I was careful not to do laundry before 9 a.m. or after 8 p.m. She told me my door was disturbing her, so every time I closed it, I used my key to turn the lock instead of pushing or pulling it and making noise. One day I was in my kitchen talking with a friend at 1 a.m. when we heard a knock on the wall. We had obviously woken her up, so we moved to chat to my bedroom, away from her, to not disturb her. During the year I lived there, I only had people over once, for half an hour between 8 p.m. and 8:30 p.m., and she wasn't even there for half of it. All I want to say is I could have been a much worse neighbor to her. I was apologizing for everything and trying to accommodate her best I could in a crappy building. The story. I was on my way to class when EM and entitled Son 2 were going up the stairs to their apartment. My back was turned to them as I was locking my door, when suddenly EM grabs my shoulder, turns me around and shoves me against my door, the big metal handle right in my spine.
"Hey, can we sleep in the morning here?"
Yes?
"Stop treating me like I'm stupid. Stop screwing with me. I know you're doing it on purpose. Every morning when you walk into your kitchen, you stomp and wake me up."
I'm sorry, no, I'm not doing it on purpose.
"I'm 60 years old. I am exhausted when I come home from work because I do a manual job 60 hours a week, so I need to sleep in the morning."
She was coming home at 3:30 p.m. on a Thursday, wasn't up at 7:30 a.m. when I was eating breakfast in my kitchen, but still managed to work 60 hours a week. Right. She kept yelling at me, saying that
"Students are only here to annoy me,"
until her son screamed,
"Next noise. You'll see what we do to you."
I started crying and left. The aftermath. I called my dad as soon as I got out of the building. I was speedwalking, as I knew they could see me from their window. My dad told me to go to the cops and file a complaint. On my way, I stopped by my school where there was an event, so friends of mine were in the hall and saw me in tears. One of them accompanied me to the police. I had to get a medical certificate to file the complaint, which explained that I was so afraid of her I was eating on my bed instead of in my kitchen, and I recorded with my phone every time I was in the hallway to have proof if she ever decided to assault me again. That night I decided to not sleep there. I picked up some clothes and my laptop, and a male friend went with me in case I ran into her again. I later got calls from the owner of the building and the management apologizing and telling me that it wasn't the first time EM had caused problems. We also received a letter saying that cameras had been installed in the hallways. In the end, I did not follow up and went to court, but she never bothered me again, so I guess that's a win. 2. I am currently dealing with the most entitled person I've ever had the displeasure to meet. To give some context, I'm a 19-year-old female, European, and the workaway is a 60-year-old female, American. For those who don't know what a workaway is, the guest comes to your house and works a certain amount of hours a day in return for free bed and food. I call the workaway Karen for ease. So I only met Karen yesterday. She has been staying at my house for around a week while I was abroad to look after our pets. My first experience was before I met her, where I found out she had gone into my bedroom and changed the layout, moving the bed, desk, sofa, as well as putting up a picture frame I did not want hanging on the wall. She also decided to rearrange my wardrobe, books, and makeup station. Karen also decided to put up some very religious paintings we had above the doorways of the kitchen and living room. These paintings are hideous. The only religious member of my family, my mum, wanted to throw these away years ago, type hideous. Some conversations since I met Karen yesterday. Karen tried to tell me she isn't very religious, but I should listen to Christian rock music because
listening to songs about God will make you happier.
Karen tried to lecture me about having my room put back the way it used to be within 10 minutes of meeting her, since my reasoning of not wanting my desk to face my bed was not good enough, and how I need to listen to someone with more life experience. Karen left open packets of meat and cheese, feta which had liquid in the packet, in the fridge. The cheese liquid spilled everywhere and nearly got on all the fresh veg. I don't eat meat for health reasons. Karen tried to tell me that cross-contamination wouldn't make me too ill, and got angry when I put them in containers. Karen removed the puzzle I had been working on before the holiday for one she wanted to do. She proceeded to tell me it was an awful puzzle. It was a gift. She tried to tell me we don't own fly swatters. She thinks she knows my house better than I do. She refused to look at me once I had retrieved them. She told me I am too negative. I won't be happy in later life. I'm not happy now, and that I need to be more adventurous. At this point, I had only met her 3 hours before, and a very adventurous person, but has a phobia of bugs. Karen interrupted a conversation I was having with my dad about medicine. TLDR, my doctor has forgotten to give me a prescription of something, to advise me to take 2 ibuprofen and an hour later to take a 3rd one. When I tried to tell her that was ill-advised and dangerous, she said,
"Your dad loves you and doesn't want to see you in pain, and I'm only trying to help."
It was clearly my fault for not taking medical advice from a non-medical professional. Karen tried to tell me I am lucky and blessed by God for having witnessed the death of a pet right next to my dad, who unfortunately missed her passing by 15 minutes. Right afterwards, she told me it was disgusting to allow my dogs to lick me, and then told me off for being worried about said dog. She's okay, but was acting very odd yesterday. She interrupted a separate conversation where I was stating to my dad that we need to put up some mosquito and fly nets. When I walked upstairs to where she was sitting, she immediately said,
"Say please,"
multiple times. FYI, I was not rude in my conversation with my dad, and if the sentence had required a please, my dad would have let me know. I finally broke and told her off for infantilizing me in my own house. No apology, as expected. 3. I am a former police officer who had to retire due to being badly injured, but this was one of my last calls before the incident that forced me into retirement. I worked for a small-town police department with only 5 or 6 officers on duty at a given time, and we each covered a vast swath of land. My beat mainly was the rural area and county highway that passes throughout the little town. One clear, sunny afternoon, I'm doing speed enforcement on the highway when my radio crackles to life of a possible kidnapping in progress, and the dispatcher proceeds to provide the details of the make and model of the car, including a female driver with short blonde hair. I proceed to get onto my computer to see if there are any more details given about this, and sure enough, there is in the call log. It provides even more details, saying the reporting party reports there is a young kid sitting in the hatchback part of the vehicle with a sign that says, "Help, I have been kidnapped, call 911, and their hands appear to be tied together. While the call is within our jurisdiction, they're nowhere near me, so there is nothing I can do at the moment, besides other officers and sheriff's deputies who are already looking for the vehicle. All is quiet for the next 10 minutes. Everybody is behaving themselves and driving the speed limit when my radio crackles to life again. We're getting another call regarding the reported kidnapping. The now traveling S on County Highway 123. And my ears perk up, and my heart starts to race as the vehicle is coming to my direction, and will be here any minute. As I'm waiting for the call dispatch, I get 3 more calls from fellow drivers who have seen this young kid holding up the "Help, I've been kidnapped" sign, and had called 911 to report it. With this stretch of highway being very flat, I'm able to see cars miles and miles away, especially if I'm using my binos, and sure enough, here comes the van. And as the van passes me, I can see the female driver who matches the description given by the RPs, and the kid sitting up against the sidewall in the hatchback area. I don't pull out right away, just in case this is an honest-to-God kidnapping. I don't want to spook the driver and get into a high-speed chase. Not to mention, I'm completely alone, and in this type of situation, you want to have a decent amount of backup in case they decide to run, and shoot it out, or whatever. So I wait until she's a good mile or 2 away, and then I pull out and tail her from that distance until I can get some backup. Luckily, there is a highway patrol barracks not too far away, and they heard my call for assistance. Just as we pass the road that leads to the highway patrol barracks, I see 4 trooper vehicles pull out behind me, so I fall back and let the troopers take the lead. In case this turned into a chase, they'd already be in position. While we're getting into position to stop the van, we're talking about how we're going to approach the situation. Are we going to do a soft traffic stop and proceed as a regular traffic stop and just pull the driver out of the vehicle, or are we going to do a full felony stop? We decided to do a full felony stop, so we spread out across all 4 lanes of traffic and all turn our lights and blip sirens at the same time. The female doesn't pull over to the side of the highway in the breakdown lane, but instead slammed on the brakes and stops in the middle of the highway. We all position our vehicles to give us the maximum amount of coverage in case of a gunfight, then get out with weapons drawn while ordering the female driver out of the vehicle. We should have known something was up when, as soon as she got out of the vehicle, she started screaming,
"It was a fucking joke!"
But right now we're not too interested in what she has to say. The point man keeps telling her to keep walking backward until we tell her to stop, and then get down on the ground. She complies, and she's cuffed. Next, we turn our attention to the female passenger, whom we didn't know at the time, as we couldn't see her face, was the female driver's 13-year-old daughter. But nonetheless, we ordered her backwards, got on the ground, and cuffed her. We did this for the next 4 passengers who were riding in the 4 seats in the back of the van. Once we got all the perceived threats out of the vehicle and secured 2 troopers, we went up to clear the vehicle while another trooper and myself rescued the young boy who was bawling from the hatchback and put him in the back of one of our vehicles to get him away from his perceived kidnappers. The whole time, mind you, the driver and front female passengers kept yelling,
"It's a joke, he's my son, he's my brother, I can't believe you guys."
So after securing everybody in separate vehicles, we started to get to the bottom of this situation. The first person we talked to is a young boy, who has since calmed down, after the female trooper got him a stuffed dinosaur and a snack and began to start asking him questions. This is when we learned the whole thing was the female driver's and her daughter's sick idea of a funny prank, since the van was full and they decided to put the young kid in the hatchback. They thought it would be funny to make a sign saying, "Help, I've been kidnapped," and have the young boy hold it up, while someone else in the van recorded the reaction of other drivers after they read the sign. Apparently they've been doing it all day and just didn't get caught until they reached this area. After talking to the other passengers, who were all under the age of 16, and learned it was mainly the idea of the mother and teen daughter, and after some discussion with the county DA on how it should be handled, we were told to kick the 4 teenagers in the back loose with no charges, to write the teenage daughter the juvenile equivalence of a ticket for inducing panic, and last but not least, save the best for Mom. I opened the door of my vehicle so I could talk to the mom. As soon as I did, she started to get out of the vehicle. When I told her to stay put, she said why.
Don't you need to take the handcuffs off me so I can sign the ticket you're going to give me, right?
I said, it's not quite that simple, I'm afraid. You're in a bit more trouble than a simple ticket. You're going to be charged with several felonies. This is when she lost it and started screaming over and over again.
It was a fucking joke. I can't believe nobody can take a fucking joke anymore. It was a joke. Now uncuff me, or I'm gonna have my husband sue you for unlawful detention.
I proceeded to read her Miranda warning. All the while she's sobbing, with no tears I might add, while muttering,
"It was a fucking joke."
After I finished with her Miranda warning, I asked her if she was willing to talk to me. She told me to fuck off. I did just that, shut the door, and let her wait for the transport vehicle. By this time, the husband and father had shown up at the scene to collect his kids in the vehicle, and was filled in on the situation. All he could do is shake his head and say, "This isn't the first time. She's done stupid crap like this before. It's just the first time she's been caught, and I've warned her in the past not to do it because I knew it would end up in a situation like this." After about 10 minutes, the transport vehicle showed up and took her away, and I went back to a quiet afternoon of catching speeders. The female driver was charged with the following: 7 counts of inducing panic, all misdemeanor, 6 counts of felony child endangerment, 1 for each kid she had in the vehicle. Reason it was a felony is that her actions put her children's lives in danger by forcing us to do a felony stop over a prank. 1 count of having an unrestrained child. She decided to put her 6-year-old son in the hatchback of the van because they didn't have any room up front. While none of those kids should have been in the back there, I'd rather one of those other kids instead of the 6-year-old. The reason why? Because the other boys were too tall and wouldn't have been comfortable back there. I've run into plenty of entitled people in my career as an EMT and police officer, but now I'm a 911 dispatcher, and I have plenty of other stories, including one where a woman demanded a homicide detective go into a murder scene at a gas station and brew her a cup of coffee because she was too cheap to spend an extra 25 cents at McDonald's that morning. 4. At work, I'm in an office with another person who I get along very well with. She just started this position in January, so she's still adjusting, but she's done a great job, and I really appreciate being able to work with her. She had been talking to the employees my supervisors and I are in charge of, and passed on to me that they had been utilizing a different office's laminator for documents, and the staff in that department asked that they stop. She asked if she could get a laminator for our office so they can use that one instead, and they agreed. She had to speak with the lower-level staff, then their supervisor, basically stating that she would be responsible for this laminator, and if anything happened to it, it would fall back on her. She agreed and brought it to our office. We both left our office for about 25 to 30 minutes. We normally keep the door open, as our supervisor likes being able to walk in and reference the charts on our walls. He does the same with his office. And when I came back, I noticed that the laminator wasn't where my coworker left it. I looked around but couldn't see it, so I decided I would wait till she was back and ask her where she put it. 10 minutes passed, and I received an email that had been blasted to everyone in our department. The email stated that the department had a new laminator for the entire department to use, and it was located in the photocopier room. I was naturally confused, since my employees aren't allowed to use that photocopier room. It's in a blocked-off area for higher-ups only. I looked who it was from and saw that Bob had sent it. I waited till my coworker came back and asked her about it, but she didn't know what I was talking about and was just as confused as I was, since she signed it out for only our office to use. Bob came by to our office shortly after, and I confronted him about it, saying that I did not appreciate him coming into our office when we were not here and taking something without telling us or even asking permission. He got defensive, saying the other department told him he could, and that it was for the entire department to use. I said that my coworker signed it out for our office so our employees could use it instead of the other department's laminator, and that my employees can't even use that photocopier room. He got defensive and said,
"Maybe you shouldn't leave your office door open then."
I retorted that no, you do not go into someone else's office and take something without even asking or even telling them. He just walked away in silence, almost like astonished that I had said that to him. I was fuming, but tried to just keep working. Then he decides to come back. He goes on to say that the laminator will be going to your office instead of the photocopier room. I say okay, and he tries to defend himself again, and I repeat, you do not go into someone else's office and take something without asking or telling them. I wouldn't go into your office and take something without asking, and I'd like that same respect. At this point, I'm just annoyed that I keep having to reiterate this, but he finally leaves. He comes back. He, as he is walking up to my office, says,
I'd appreciate you not taking a tone with me.
and I go, I did not take a tone with you, I simply stated, yet again, that you do not go into someone's office and take something without asking or telling them. And I'm getting heated, so I'm starting to raise my voice, and he just continuously interrupts me saying,
No, or no, I don't want to hear it,
before finally storming off. I was just at a loss for words. He is very close with my supervisors, and the last time I tried to report someone for sexual misconduct, showing me an inappropriate photo in the workplace, they essentially told me that I needed to speak with my therapist on ways not to put myself in vulnerable positions, and that I needed to remember that he is still my superior and deserves the respect that comes with his title, so I didn't feel it was worth mentioning to them. Now I just refuse to acknowledge him, unless I have to for work purposes. I wish there was more to this, but alas there is not. 5. I live in the US, and specifically, I lived in New Jersey at the time. As a teenager, I remember me and my friends noticed someone left both a puppy and a toddler in the car during a very hot summer in a Walmart parking lot, with the car off and windows up. After about a half hour of waiting, we called 911. The dispatcher said not much they could do on their end unless the kid and or puppy looked dead, despite no matter how much we tried explaining the situation. Next, we tried to get the manager at the Walmart. He said there wasn't much he could do, legally, without risking a lawsuit. But he kind of gave us a window breaker tool knife and let the security guard know to ignore us breaking the window on camera and to scrub that camera. So we go back to the car, break the front windows as to make sure a glass didn't hit the baby or puppy. Then after the job was done, we went back into the store and made a big scene of reporting vandalism. Like the security guard suggested, he too tried to call the cops an hour before we did for the same car. Only then did the cops actually come. I don't know what happened after we left because we didn't want the off chance of the cops even trying to arrest us for saving a life. Though the next time we went back to that store, the guard and the manager thanked us heavily, because apparently others in the store also tried to report that car to the cops, and they didn't listen. But with all the testimonies from other shoppers, even despite the security footage missing a bit of time, thanks guard for the solid, they had enough to arrest the Karen for child and animal endangerment, and apparently stopped trying to hunt down the vandal due to a more serious crime. I hope the baby and puppy survived and are in better care now. Side note, I vaguely remember some laws being changed about a year or so after me and my friend did this. So, I wonder if this incident might have played a part in changing the laws regarding when police were able to come for something like this. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 65. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. Now, as I've been reminding you guys this week, I'm not going to ask you to like the video, you're capable of doing that on your own. What I'm going to ask you is something a lot of people forget. See next to where it says subscribed. I'm assuming you are subscribed. There's a little bell icon. If that bell is hollow, I want you to click on it and change it to where it says all notifications. That's the solid looking, the white solid looking bell, and that'll ensure that you actually get notified when I upload videos. Okay, good stuff. Right. We are on Tuesday, and I'm thinking about baking. Not relevant, it's just what I'm thinking about. I've not baked anything for a while. I went to do it last night and discovered that the ingredients I had there had been there so long, because it's been so long since I've done it, they were very expired. More expired than I'm comfortable using. I got them when lockdown started, intending to do a bit of baking like everyone else did, like way back in 2020. And this past couple of years have just whooshed by, haven't they? Okay, but that's enough grumbling for me. I'll get fresh ingredients and maybe have a go. I'm telling myself it's healthier if I just bake from my own ingredients and buy them from a store, which it probably technically is. Not by much. Okay, now I believe we have a little birthday shout out to do today, and yes, we do. This one goes to Kimmy. Kimmy is 34 years old yesterday, actually. I only saw the message today. That's my fault. I should check my email box probably on the daily. Right, but it's never too late to sing happy birthday. That's just what we're going to do right now. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kimmy. Happy birthday to you. And as I forgot to do it on the proper day, Kimmy, you are now allowed to celebrate for 2 whole weeks. Them's the rules. I don't make them up. Except that one I just made up, but it's 2 whole weeks. Very good. That means you're allowed 2 birthday cakes. You're allowed double the presents. Remember, we have to demand people give you double the presents. And go easy on the alcohol, though, because it is 2 weeks of debauchery. So, maybe keep it easy if you're into that sort of thing. Okay, let's see. Do we have time for a Hellfreezer's question of the day? I think we do. Okay, let's see. Before we go, Hellfreezer's question of the day. Okay, which fictional character, excluding serial killers and obviously overtly dangerous ones, would you cross the street to avoid talking to? Okay, mine would be the character Rodney McKay from Stargate and Stargate Atlantis. That's not to say I don't like the character, I do. I think he's very entertaining, albeit quite different on Stargate than he was in Atlantis, insufferable in both. But he's someone who's so full of himself that while he later becomes quite endearing, I would not want to spend any time talking to the man because it would ultimately all be about how wonderful he is. Okay, let me know what you think in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.